An manchen Tagen hab ich so viele Fragen, wie's dir geht und wo du steckst und ob du auch mal an mich denkst. Und ja, du bist der Grund, wenn ich schreib, ich will nur uns. An manchen Tagen hätte ich so vieles zu sagen.
Ihr Lieben, und damit heiße ich euch ganz herzlich willkommen zur dritten Ausgabe hier beim Kieler Wochentalk. Wir begrüßen heute ein pures Politikgesicht aus Amerika, John Bolton. Er ist der ehemalige Sicherheitsberater von Donald Trump. Er war so circa 1,5 Jahre im Amt als Sicherheitsberater von Donald Trump und jetzt ist er republikanischer Politiker und sehr gesehener Gast in deutschen Talkshows, aber auch in amerikanischen Talkshows. Wir sprechen mit John Bolton heute über den Krieg in der Ukraine, über die bisherige Amtszeit von Donald Trump, über die erste, über die zweite und die alles entscheidende Frage: Wie wird Donald Trump eigentlich in Amerika gesehen, nach mehr als 100 Tagen im Amt? Ich würde sagen, viel Spaß mit der Folge, viel Spaß mit dem Interview, mit dem Gespräch mit John Bolton. So, John Bolton, Republican politician and diplomat and former National Security Advisor to Donald Trump. Welcome. It's good to see you in these challenging times.
Well, thank you for having me. Glad to be with you.
The war in Ukraine is still going on, and the trade war between the United States and China is on hold for 19 days. Let's start with the war in Ukraine. Donald Trump has been back in office for 3 months now. How do you see the Trump administration's work in supporting Ukraine?
Well, I think Trump said during the course of the 2024 presidential campaign that if he were elected, he would bring Zelensky and Putin together in a room and they'd decide the whole issue within 24 hours. That obviously hasn't happened. It never was going to happen. And so Trump has been trying to put together both the minerals deal, which is now signed, and also a ceasefire, which has obviously not happened. And there's some question how much more attention Trump is going to pay to the war, which he has always regarded as Biden's war. He said that the Russians never would have invaded had he been president. And I think he really just wants it off the table. He just doesn't want to deal with it, which doesn't bode well for Ukraine. But on the other hand, since Trump has a short attention span, he may cease the efforts to build a ceasefire. The real question is whether he will continue U.S. military assistance to Ukraine, which I certainly think he should. But Trump's approach during his first 3.5 months in office is just as chaotic and just as much in disarray as other policies that he's pursued, because he's always being diverted by something else, in this case, particularly the trade war.
Would you say Trump is on the side like Zelensky or Putin?
Well, I think he sees Putin as a personal friend, and that's not how Putin sees him. He sees somebody who's easy to manipulate from his former KGB perspective. But Trump would like to have his friend be happy, and since Trump sees international relations through the prism of these personal relationships, that is a problem with Zelensky, who has had trouble developing a positive relationship with Trump on a personal level since their famous perfect phone call that led to Trump's first impeachment in the summer of 2019. So I think it's a very difficult position for Ukraine. And frankly, I don't necessarily accept that a ceasefire at this point is in Ukraine's interest. I frankly think Putin's interest would be served by a ceasefire because of the terrible pounding that the Russian military has taken. He obviously doesn't agree with that, but Ukraine I think, should worry more that if you did put a ceasefire in place, followed by potentially quite lengthy negotiations on a permanent settlement, that the ceasefire line could become a new de facto Russia-Ukraine border, which is not in Ukraine's interest to have happen.
So, would you say that Trump is back? You think that we're closer to a World War III with Donald Trump? in the following of the Ukraine war?
No, I don't think so. I don't think Putin's threats to use nuclear weapons were ever credible. I mean, obviously, when a nuclear power implies the use of nuclear weapons, you should take the threat seriously. But if you look at the evaluation that our intelligence community conducted, they testified to it in public sessions of Congress. Nothing ever happened after Putin rattled the nuclear saber. So I think it was intended to deter Biden and NATO, and unfortunately it succeeded. But I think it was a bluff. I don't think the threat was real.
And many experts in Germany says that Putin can test the NATO in September. Do you also think it?
Well, it's possible, but I think Putin's objective is to recreate the Russian Empire, not the Soviet Union, but the Russian Empire. He has a lot of territory yet to cover that's not doesn't consist of Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, former parts of the Soviet Union and now NATO members. He can look at Central Asia. He can look at the Caucasus. He can go after Moldova. Not good for those countries, but I don't think he would really want to see the answer to the question what Trump would do if Putin actually attacked a NATO country.
Mm-hmm. Then we hope the best. If you were the national security advisor, what advice would you give about Ukraine and Europe?
Well, I think Trump, through a variety of things, what he's said on Ukraine, what he's done in the trade war, is tearing up decades of goodwill and good faith and trust and reliance among our North Atlantic partners. I think it's very detrimental. I think it can be repaired, at least I hope it can be repaired, but the damage may get worse. I would tell him, I try again to explain to him why NATO is good for the United States. It's not a freebie that we're giving to the Europeans. We're not doing this out of the goodness of our heart or because we're nice people, although we're doing it because mutual security, collective defense means that in a functioning alliance, everybody is better off. And that is true of NATO. He doesn't understand that, but hopefully if enough people keep repeating it to him, maybe it will get through.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that Donald Trump will leave the NATO in the next years?
Well, I think it's a possibility, and that's why I worry about some European leaders who say, for example, as Chancellor Merz said, that he wants more independence from the United States. You don't want to give Trump a permission slip to leave Europe, to leave NATO, to say, well, look, if the Europeans want to take care of themselves, fine. Who are we to stand in their way? That's not the right outcome.
Mm-hmm. Donald Trump will buy Greenland. And what do you think is going on in Trump's minds when he shares such ideas publicity?
Well, he's a real estate guy, and so he thinks in terms of buying pieces of land. He didn't discover Greenland, by the way. The first American effort to purchase Greenland was in 1868 when William Seward, the Secretary of State who had just bought Alaska from Russia the year before, tried to buy Greenland unsuccessfully. And the last effort was Harry Truman in 1947 offered Denmark $100 million, which was real money back then, unsuccessfully. Look, I think this can be worked out. I'd be happy if Greenland became part of America, a commonwealth like Puerto Rico or something like that. But what's really important here is not the sovereignty, it's the security question. And we have worked with Denmark and we've worked with the people of Greenland over many years to protect what is in their security interest and in ours. In the height of the Cold War, the United States had 16 military bases in Greenland. Mm-hmm. So there's a way to do this. I would take the whole subject out of the public spotlight and negotiate behind closed doors. I think we could solve the problem. And I think everybody would end up better off. And I think NATO would be more secure in and around Greenland and the entire Arctic environment.
So we talk about Trump is shaking up the world again. On his first day in office, he signed many documents. Old friends now face a colder wind. How long do you think Trump can continue his thought trade actions?
Well, he has done a lot of things that were unexpected, or he's done them in ways that weren't expected. And I think that although his first 100 days overall were a kind of shock and awe first 100 days, I'm not sure that he can keep up the pace. I mean, I think he will continue to do things that are aberrational in American politics, but nobody can predict with certainty here. But I think it's possible the pace will slow down, and that he'll get distracted by other things because he does have a short attention span, and so the world won't return to normal until he's no longer president. But it won't be as frenetic as the first 100 days.
Mm. Do you know how was the view in the American people for Donald Trump?
Well, if you look at his approval-disapproval ratings, they've gone down significantly to approach the levels that he had in his first term, which were historically low. But he has a strong base of support, so they won't go down significantly, I think, until there are economic consequences from what he said about tariffs, and if, depending on how it comes out, because it's very uncertain, but if there's economic, the worst case, if there were a recession, but even if there's economic turmoil and uncertainty and prices go up, that could cost him politically. It would have to be something now that has real consequences for American consumers. And we'll know, I think, at least generally, what that might look like in the next 90 to 120 days.
So we talk about many problems. I have a personally question. Do you know what is the problem from Donald Trump with you?
Well, I disagreed with him. I think that's the biggest problem, and I wrote a book that was critical of him, which he doesn't like at all. Nobody likes to be criticized. People hope that people agree with what they want to do. But, normally in government, it's helpful to have within a broad philosophical framework of Republican administrations or Democratic administrations, people can have disagreements on a lot of things that they provide different perspectives. It can lead to better decision-making, more informed decision-making. And I fear in Trump's second term, he's so eager to have people around him who don't say, but Mr. President, have you considered these options? Or have you weighed the pros and cons of what you're suggesting? They just say, yes, sir. He may like that, but in the long term, it will not serve him well, and it certainly will not serve the country well.
So on this way, thank you, Mr. Bolton. And a last question. We have now 3 more years with Donald Trump. The Ukraine war continues and democracies around the world seem to getting weaker. What gives you hope for the next weeks, months, and years?
Well, over the long term, if the American economy remains strong and others remain strong, we'll get through the tariff problems. But there are a lot of threats in the world, from the China-Russia axis, from the threat of nuclear proliferation from Iran, North Korea, and others, the threat of international terrorism. I wish we had stronger, more coherent American leadership, but we don't, and we're just going to have to grit our teeth and try and make it through. It's 4 years is a long time, but it's not the end of the world.
So, Mr. Bolton, thanks for your time. And
well, thanks for having me.
Das war sie, die 3. Folge vom Kieler Wochentalk im Jahr 2025. John Bolton, it was a really big pressure with you. Es war eine wirklich große Ehre, mit Ihnen ins Gespräch zu kommen. Vielen Dank für Ihre Zeit. Vielen Dank, dass Sie sich die Zeit genommen haben. Wir sehen uns im Juni wieder. Dann heißt es Kieler Woche. Weniger als 4 Wochen, dann ist die Kieler Woche. Dann steht die Kieler Woche wieder vor der Tür. Ich wünsche euch allen bis dahin eine gute Zeit. Bleibt gesund, passt auf euch auf. Bleibt positiv. Bis Juni 2025, also in circa 4 Wochen. Anfang Juni wird der neue Termin für die 4. Folge im Jahr 2025 bekannt gegeben. Bis dahin, euch allen eine schöne Zeit. Bleibt gesund, passt auf euch auf. Und wie eben gesagt, bleibt positiv. Liebe Grüße aus Kiel. Ahoi und bis bald. Ciao.